Hello. Recording in progress. Hi, Kimberly.
Hey, Tony.
It's fun already. 8.
8 is turning imperfection into perfection, being a love magnet. It's weird that they put those two together, hey?
Turning perfection into no. They're turning perfection into imperfection. Turning imperfection into perfection, being a love magnet. So
Yeah.
I like that we don't prep these because we have to even talk through what they're trying to say. Does that mean our own imperfections? Or the
Yeah.
imperfections we perceive in others? Yes, probably.
Yeah, I feel like it's that.
All right, let's do it.
Well, I think what does that mean? It's like we all have this idea of what we think would encompass the idea of a perfect partner, right? Or perfect relationship situation. And I feel like, allow me to answer for the human race, but I feel like most people fall short of that, right? And so I think that's what this is about, is how can you turn something that isn't perfect into something that is perfect without changing a person
And attract love for yourself in that. Yeah, because the whole time you've been alive, how many relationships have you seen that are like that Cinderella love story? They just fit each other like a glove. Not too many.
Not too many. I think I think that can borderline be discouraging though, because I think that you can have something magical and beautiful and fairy tale-esque, but you have to do this step, right? Like you have to do what they're talking about here.
Yes, I think there's that odd meet across the room meant for each other meet up, but I don't think that's reality for most people. So we have to either assume everyone else is fucked, or you can work through the imperfections to perfection and attract love.
Yeah, exactly.
So we, being believers in love, I have to believe in that. Otherwise, it's pretty blah, right?
Yeah. And this is it's an interesting story because I mean I'm a big I really cheer on the idea of having healthy boundaries, because then when you have your own healthy boundaries, you'll be able to determine what is like non-negotiable, right? In trying to account for imperfections and turning them into perfections. Because I think, like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here, I just think that if you get bad vibes off of things and things don't sit well with you, you really have to weigh out this idea of, is it because you have high expectations, or is it because, or like perfection expectations, or is it because you're actually participating in something that's shit?
I like that.
But this could be, that what I'm saying is like when you're in a relationship. So
yeah. So how do you navigate that?
That is tricky, but I think it's possible. I think it requires a little bit of introspection.
What do you mean? I was thinking maybe because I remember in school, not everyone was talking about boundaries, or they didn't realize they could even have boundaries in relationships. So what do you mean, not from my perspective, but for listeners, when you say set healthy boundaries in relationships?
Well, I think if you kind of know what is like an absolute, like, this isn't going to feel good for me for safety reasons, for health reasons, for mental and emotional well-being reasons. I think that that's important to pay attention to and to build what I call your foundation of boundaries on. But I mean, within that too, it's like, it's such a delicate topic, right? Because you have to also be able to really like be fluid with why you feel the way you do and why you maybe have problems with the things you have problems with, right?
Uh-huh. And learning what's a wall and what's a boundary, right? Because some people are like hard ass, especially when
Yeah.
they're already in a relationship. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
not a boundary, or they have none. And then they take on everything of their partners, which I have more tendencies like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then and then life's shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're taking it all on. So how do you learn to set those boundaries that your stuff is not my stuff, even though we're together? So important, I think.
It is. It's I would be lying if I said I was an expert at this. Believe me when I say, and you know this, I've spent a lot of time dwelling on this and in this and like observing, questioning, experiencing, like it's kind of my thing, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like it's a very tricky territory to navigate. So what could you give somebody for advice? I think that it is really helpful to maybe sit with yourself and maybe start. I always support writing, the idea of writing or typing, whatever people want to do, and getting it like setting out with the intention to write about your boundaries in relationships, why you feel the way you do. Just start writing, getting it out of you.
Yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
explore, right? Like explore why you feel the way you feel. And like, like you just said, I'm that way too sometimes. And it's like, explore the idea of the fact that you're maybe more receptive to your partner. And so you end up taking on their stuff.
100%. And well, that's our whole system that we'll get to eventually. But I think you're right with the journaling. Really get to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to, having not been in one for so long and then back in a relationship, it's like, it's so much easier to give advice than to live advice. So you have to really watch it, because I think I would have said someone, of course you can set boundaries. They're very important. You have to, and when you're in it, you're like, ooh, because you start to, I can even be not in the same house and be like, oh, I'm feeling this. And it's like, yeah, I know you are, because I somehow am feeling it too. So it's like needing to, without setting a wall, learn that I'm sorry you're having a shitty day, but I can't take on that whole day within my own stuff, right? So how can I do that? But I'm also not going to say, okay, we're done because you make me feel shitty because you have bad days and I can't take on. Like there's that balance of I can totally live with that imperfection of you. I can't take it on, but there's some way I can love you through it. And that's that narrow wall I think you're talking about, right? That's the complicated piece.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What, like, can you be present with somebody's shit? And like that is a really good way to maybe like readers digest the idea of turning imperfections into perfections, is sitting with it and being okay with where your partner's at, being present, not taking it on.
Yeah.
And
What if
patience.
when they don't want to be around you? What if that's their shit? Not that they want to be around you and be negative. What if they're like, oh, I'm having such an off day. I don't really want to do this. And you have to watch your own, because you haven't set any boundaries or know your own personality. And I know for me, it's like, oh, what did I do? Why is it me? Like you can go into a spiral of that. I could teach this. I could sure teach you all exactly the right way to act. But within your own relationship, you've got to really watch it. There has to be so much communication too.
Yeah.
So,
And both parties, right?
so much both parties, just to say, hey, is this about me today? And if it's like, no, if you're trusting that person, you've got to just let them be in their own stuff, right?
You know what is also really interesting? I'm somebody who I like to say openly, it's like, yeah, I have high expectations. I put it in quotations because it's like, yes, but also no, right? But I have expectations. And so I I'm recently starting to truly observe that like the things that I expect from a partner, it's like, am I also delivering those, right? Because I think that's important too. It's like, are you able to embody what it is that you expect from another person, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, because then that mirroring comes up, and is it really their imperfection, or is it your fear of
Mhm.
what that imperfection that you perceive will do to your relationship?
Exactly. And it's almost mirroring it because you're projecting it
Yeah.
internally outwards, right?
No, I
And
had
I
to
think
watch
it's
that for sure.
great.
Hmm. Exactly. Like having rejection sensitive dysphoria or whatever you want to label that.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not rejection, but I feel that as rejection because I would think, well, obviously that's rejection, and it's not at all. It could have just been an off the cuff remark, or they're having a bad day. It actually has very little to do with you. And you take it to this whole other level, and it becomes this imperfection. And then your brain takes it, well, can I really be with someone like that? Because on my list is that's something I don't put up with. And really? Whoa, that's where I think you're right. Journaling, or at least taking that time to be aware that you're spiraling and start listing in your head, right? Like,
Hmm.
is this real?
It's here's something I do. And I have told clients this in the past too, like that will help with that. And it sounds corny, but like, holy shit balls, does it work? So I always say, and I say it, think it, hold it, energize it, whatever. The universe or whatever, the creator will always show me what I need to know when I need to know it. And in my opinion, that's a really beautiful way to just kind of like take the weight off of the situation or expectations and things like that. And if you start opening up to the idea that you will see what you need to see when you need to see it, and it will, like, not in a like evidence-based thing, but it can be that way. I'm thinking more like you'll start to observe the patterns of like, you know, what you were just saying about the rejection sensitivity, and like realizing that maybe it's you projecting that because you feel it internally. I think that that's a perfect example of somebody coming into an awareness of something deeper, because whatever the creative energy, the creative spirit wants Tony to be aware of that, right?
Mhm.
I think that it's easier said than done because it kind of forces you to have trust in the process,
Yes.
right? But it
And not
goddamn
run
works.
and watch your patterns, because patterns with that is usually to offset the rejection, right? So you perceive their imperfection, and then what you can do is just be like, well, that's just not, that's on my list, and that's not something I put up with, so we're done. And but what you've really just done is protect yourself from having to deal with your own issues with rejection, and you haven't actually dealt with their imperfection. You've just amplified your own, really.
Totally. Totally.
Which is interesting. I found myself in that this morning. Let's be real and honest with our viewers when I feel it. Something was off in the energy, so you just keep ramping it up, and then they're off in their energy, and then if I'm like, okay, I should just go home. Blah blah. This is terrible. This isn't the way I want to feel, and then I just stopped. And we're Abraham fans. If you don't, viewers, we are. But it was kind of like one of those statements of, so is this how you want your day to go? Is this really how you want your day to go, down this spiral of negative thoughts and wrecking the day and going home and feeling dejected and rejected? And is that how you want your day to go? Or can you take this day and switch it around? I couldn't take the day and turn it into like this beautiful, romantic, loving day because the energy's already switched. But I could go grab someone's face and say, hey, my energy was off. can we restart the day and shift everything? And it shifted everything. We had not the most amazing day, but we had a good day. And I'm not in that space of shit, everything's terrible. So sometimes, so of course their imperfection had something to do with that day too. It wasn't just me, but I had the decision to see how I wanted to view that.
Totally. I think that's a perfect example of a few things. So the topic title, taking imperfection, turning it into perfection. Not perfect as though like there's some definition on that, but making it, it's like taking control of it and making it better, a better experience for yourself and for the other, right?
Yeah.
But then it's also a perfect example of how we're totally in control of our own experience and our own reality. And if you're conscious of it, like Tony, like you were just now explaining, then you can kind of grab the reins on it a bit and redirect.
Yeah, and then it becomes a love magnet, because I don't care what anyone says unless you're like totally with an asshole that you really need to go away. And that's a whole different topic. But as soon as I switched my energy, even though I got told, well, it's not all you, I'm like, yeah, I get that. But if I switch my energy, it's phenomenal how much the whole day changes, right?
Oh yeah.
Because you influence it so much.
You do. And I think also too, that's huge, because often when in partnership, we put a lot of onus on the other person to, if they change, things will be better, or if they change, I'll change, or if they do this, then I can reciprocate, right? And I'm guilty of that too. Like, it's very, I'm not knocking anybody, because it's reactive, right?
It's reactive. Yeah.
But if you grab the reins and realize, you know, I don't want to feel this way, and I have say and control over that, then that, my friends, is power in relationship. And then you're not doing it to change the other person. You're doing it for the sake of the relationship.
Absolutely.
For yourself first, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is then not reactive. So then there's still an imperfection in that person because something didn't click. And then if you do that and choose to change their day and they still choose to spiral, well, then if I chose to go home, that'd be different. It'd be like, you know what, I just can't be in this energy anymore. It wouldn't just be this reactive, oh, the world's coming to an end. You have to know your patterns too, though. We have to admit, you and I have done a lot of work. So I could switch that day around real quick today, because it's like, oh, Tony, you're a spiraler. And a few years ago, I probably would have just went, well, they don't care about me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or even a few months ago in a different realm, right? So there's so much shifting that, I don't know. I still think it's a question, even if you haven't done a lot of work yet, to ask yourself, is this the way you want your day to go? Because that jolted me out of it real quick today. It's like, no, I do not want to sit in this energy for the next 24 hours. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And you know, that's another reason why that's huge, is because you're stepping away from the victim game, right? Where it's like, well, it's their fault that I feel shitty, right? And it may be accurate, but
right.
You don't have to feel that way, man.
You don't have to feel that way. And then you magnetize more love, right? So let's say if you weren't in a relationship, though, imperfections, well, you might be able to, it sounds like we're saying lower your standards, right? Which is kind of true in a way, but I think you're right. If you list out those things that are just, like I like to say, non-negotiable, then you have to look at because no one's coming perfect. So can you look at the imperfections as the uniqueness of the person, as opposed to.
That's right. That's right.
Right. There's a reason you're attracted to this, or you're going to attract someone in. So I don't know.
I know. And, you know, I was thinking about that as I was driving home, and it's like, you think about anybody you know, you could think of anything about people you know, or it like drives you a little bit fucking nuts, right?
Of course.
So what are you just going to be alone forever?
And right, no friends, no nothing.
Exactly.
Well, I guess that some people choose that, but if you want to attract love, you're gonna have to put it when, well, you have your own freaking imperfections. So you know that there's, and I wonder if a lot of times, well, not us.
don't include me in this bullshit.
If we don't start noticing their imperfections and what drives us crazy, if we don't stop it, if we do stop it, I think we could see that it's probably one of our own imperfections that is butting heads with one of theirs too, right?
Totally.
And then
And you have to be willing to be open and honest about your own bullshit.
you do, which is not that easy. And you know what? I feel for people that want to have conversations about it and their partner won't. That's like a whole different topic, right? But this is more, be careful what you're calling an imperfection, because it's also a piece of what makes up the person that you're attracted to.
You know, that's interesting, because we could almost do that as our next talk. Like, what do you do when you want to, how do you work with energy when you want to communicate and have open, honest sharing, and your partner does not?
What do you do?
Maybe we'll approach that
There's a few different dynamics involved in that, which comes down to the way they communicate too. Yeah, that would be a good one to do next. We could totally do that. All right. Do you have anything else to add to?
No, I would just say, like, you know, if you're finding yourself irritated and stressed out with your partner and they're driving you nuts, just kind of what we're talking about, like be willing to be a little bit more open with, if you're noticing things and reflected in somebody else that are reflecting back to you, because it's a mirror image, right? And like, if you can you like take responsibility for your experience, for how you want to feel in your relationship, in your day, in the moment, and grab those reins and turn it around, regardless of what the other person's going to do or not do, right?
Yeah, and it will inevitably, unless you're totally with who you shouldn't be, attract love, because you become attractive to them, instead of, because your energy is exuding, oh my God, I can't stand your imperfections right now. It's what you're exuding, and it's driving me crazy, and I'm feeling insecure about it, and blah, blah, blah. Even if you're not saying it, everything about you is saying it. And there's no way they're gonna, unless they're really doing the same work too, which some of them are, but I don't know.
That's a good point. You become a magnet because you're shifting your energy to allow for it.
Yeah, and then it all feels off, and you can ruin days with that, and it's not worth it.
It's true. And then it becomes a rut eventually.
Yeah, or it becomes a blame game. Well, you don't love me, or you don't like me, or you don't, and it's like, well, that's because you aren't attracting it in, because you were so focused on the imperfections. What if you turned it around today, even, and I didn't go this far, but what if you went this far to say, okay, stop, start listing everything you really love about this person?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And then you'd be like, oh, right, there's a reason I like this, and you have to watch, and then I'll be done. But I'm like, let's talk it out to the last little bit. And they're more, yeah, we're off today, we won't be tomorrow, let's just keep going. And those are two like quite different. Can you come in the middle and realize you probably don't need to talk everything out, but see if they're willing to talk a little bit of it out, and it'll shift the energy too. Is there some give and take in there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the energy changes and you magnetize it. But if I did say anything about their imperfections and perfections, is if you're focused on imperfections, then even if you don't have a relationship, then you might have to be very patient to find the one, because good luck.
Hey, you know what else is really something to consider? When you said, what if you just said, no, I don't want to, I'm going to take the reins on this situation. And then you did what Tony suggested, and you wrote down everything you loved about your partner. What if you also wrote down everything you loved about yourself? And the reason why I bring that up is because, again, the mirroring, it's like we often project outwards what we feel internally, right? So if we're very critical and hard on ourselves and insecure and questioning our own behaviors, but we don't want to own it, oftentimes we'll project that onto another person or do it to them. And I used to be really bad for that. not towards the other person, but even to myself. It's like I had a life coach point out to me in our hour-long conversation that I didn't say one nice thing about myself, but I had like so many shitty things to say about myself. And it's like, oh my God, it's like, she's right. And then so I started really catching myself on that. And I think it really shifted the way I deal with other people too. So,
which is true, because how can you be a love magnet with a partner if you have no magnetism and love for yourself?
it's accurate.
It's not going to work very well. So I love that.
I love it too. Another topic too.
Another topic. Well, go be love magnets. Stop.
Not this topic though. We'll carry it on another time.
All right. Imperfections, perfection, and love magnetism. We could talk for hours, huh?
Mhm.
But we won't. Have fun attracting love.
Come work with us at our linktree.com site, www.linktr.ee/redlipstickbabes. Can't wait to see you there.